Okay, we'll call this meeting to order at 6:36. We do apologize to the public. We were delayed for our public and committee of adjustment meeting that we had previously. So calling the meeting to order at 6:36, and we will all rise to sing "O Canada." I don't think you want me to sing. Not right now.
Okay. Our home and native land, true patriot love, in all our songs commend. With glowing hearts we see thee rise, the true north strong and free. From far and wide, O Canada, we stand on guard for thee. God keep our land glorious and free. O Canada, we stand on guard for thee. O Canada, we stand on guard for thee.
It's actually a good reminder to all of us that our voices still work and we can raise them in song. So thank you. Number 3 on the agenda is declaration of interest in general nature thereof. Does anybody have an interest to declare at this point? Seeing no hands, we'll go forward with the consent agenda and the adoption of minutes. So the motion comes forward from Councillor Maybe and seconded by Councillor Jameson that the March 14th, 2022 council meeting minutes and April 4th, 2022 committee of the whole meeting minutes be adopted as circulated. Any errors or omissions in said minutes? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor, please signify. All those opposed, and it's carried. Next item on the agenda is staff reports, number 6. So there is a number of staff reports here. We'll put the motion on the floor. Motion comes forward from Councillor Fody and seconded by Councillor Jameson. The council approved the staff reports as recommended at the April 4th, 2022 committee of the whole meeting. Is there any discussion on any of those reports, ancillary discussion, or do we need to pull any of them? Go ahead.
May I ask a sort of a procedural question? In that we are being asked later this evening to pass a bylaw on the procedural bylaw. Would it be appropriate to have a discussion or bring up any points bringing aside 6.7, or would it be more appropriate and to wait until the bylaw is being brought up? Or either or?
Through your worship, I think it would be more appropriate to bring it up now.
Okay, and I guess I'm asking it to be pulled.
So we will pull the, sorry, which one is it? Number 6.7. 6.7 administration report SR-032-22. So it will be that the council approve the staff reports as recommended at the April 4th, 2022 committee of the whole meeting, except with exception to 6.7 SR-032-22. Okay, So I need a mover and a seconder for that amendment. Okay, so I need a mover and a seconder for that so Jameson and Fody. Okay, so the amendment is to approve with the exception of SR 032 22. Mr. Donahue, would you like to speak to that? Or just to
Before-
provide context?
Just before we go on to that one, I just wanted to bring to council's attention during the discussion of two reports with respect to the lease agreement for victim services and the special events policy. There were some tweaks to be made to both documents, which I have done. So for the victim services, it was relating to removal to a reference of the tenant being responsible for ballasts and starters and also fire extinguishers. So that update's been made at the suggestion of Councillor Maybe. And with respect to the special events policy, there was an update with respect to recuperation of fees for staff time that may be used to attend an event on behalf of the township, and also to add a reference to other fees such as boat ramp fees to additional charges that may apply. So I just wanted to point that out to council. The changes are reflected in the form of the bylaw that you'll be considering later on tonight.
Okay, so unless, doesn't seem like anybody has an appetite to pull any of those reports, so thank you for providing that context. I will call the question on the amendment. All those in favor of the amendment to pull SR 032 22, please signify. All those opposed, and that is carried. So I'll go back to the original motion moved by Councillor Fody, seconded by Councillor Jameson, that the council approve the staff reports as recommended at the April 4th, 2022 committee of the whole meeting, with the exception of SR 032 22. Any further discussion on that? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? All those opposed? And we're carried. So now that we have SR 032 22, I will need a motion to put that on the floor for discussion. Councillor Gorell is moving that. And I've got Councillor Oakley on the screen as a seconder, that the report SR 032 22 be to be approved. So the motion is now on the floor for discussion. Councillor Burrell, if you'd like to speak to that.
Thank you. And through you, your worship. It's really a detail here, nothing more, but it involves electronic meetings. And a couple of points. I believe I'm right when I say that this council chamber is obligated to record council meetings. And we used to do it through, I believe, a camera, but now we have morphed into using Zoom. That's fine to a point, except it requires extra equipment. So in some regards, it's discriminatory for someone who may not have extra equipment, because I receive digital information on the computer provided to me, and each one of us, or maybe you have the choice. I like to have the documents in front of me, and they're not provided, and I don't want them in paper print. So therefore, my electronic meeting, because it's done with Zoom, requires a Zoom device. Now, we just seem to have accepted that, and I don't think that is quite correct in my humble opinion. So I guess the simple point is this idea of recording could go back to those cameras. We don't need to be using Zoom. It just seemed to have become easy peasy. And secondly, and this one is interesting, there was a discussion, it says here on the April 4th meeting, council should consider, like in the future, certain limitations to the use of electronic meetings. Well, that's, in my humble opinion, we're having an electronic meeting right now the minute we use Zoom. So we'd have to tread carefully on that, wouldn't we? And therefore, on one hand, I'm saying eliminate the Zoom meetings here. I'd like to have everyone in this room because there's no reason we can't do that. We just adopted this because it seemed to click. So I think I would like to see us clean that up a little bit. And I don't really want to be using Zoom in this room, to be perfectly honest. And I'd like us to think about that. Thank you.
Go ahead, Sia.
Thank you, Worship, and through you. So Zoom doesn't require extra equipment. Anyone with a computer can access Zoom. You also have an option through Zoom meetings to dial in by telephone. So you don't actually even need a computer. You just need a phone.
Whose phone?
Whoever's phone. Anybody who has a phone. I'm not quite sure how that's discriminatory, Brock. Could you explain it a little better for me here?
What it is if someone sat in this chair and did not have extra equipment, and they chose not to have extra equipment, unless it wants to be supplied by the township. I know it sounds a little out there, but really I bring my own equipment in here and I feel that maybe I shouldn't, or maybe I should charge a rent. I don't know.
Through you, Your Worship. So the provincial government permitted electronic meetings under the Municipal Act.
Mhm.
And whether council decides to use it or not, it's deemed authorized or it meets the requirements of council meeting participation.
Yeah.
If there's a councillor who doesn't have a phone or a computer, they're certainly welcome to attend the council chambers to participate, and we'll provide them with a computer, which we do all councillors already, and a phone already. So I'm still not really following your argument on this.
Let's get back to the first argument about recording meetings. That was done long time ago, probably two administrations ago, I believe. And we have the equipment in this room to do that. But yet we morphed into this Zoom for recording purposes. We don't really need to have that in this room, in my opinion. It's lovely to have our squares up there like Hollywood Squares, but really it's not necessary. And I don't know that it adds anything. And I am not provided with extra equipment. I don't know, people sitting around this table are. It seems minor, but I'm not. And so therefore, I guess I could use my telephone. My computer, I require to have the data in front of me that we are being asked to discuss, because that is my digital media. That is not, unless you can split the screen and put Zoom up there. I've said enough. It's such a minor thing, but it irks me. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So go ahead, CAO, and then I'll recognize Councillor Jameson.
Well, the Zoom meetings also are not just for the convenience of council. As we just demonstrated through the public meeting of the Committee of Adjustment and through the Planning Act Committee, it allows the public participation by electronic means to attend when it may not be convenient for them to attend in council chambers. So there's a benefit to the public on that. It's supported by the provincial government. And I think everybody here has made use of this over the past 2 years, particularly during this pandemic. So I agree, it's a small point, but technology is going to advance, and I think it's just the way it's going to be now going forward, Councillor.
Councillor Jameson.
I'm only getting into this because I've actually appreciated the Zoom platform, not because we were isolated, and thank goodness we had these platforms in the height of this plague, which is not by any means over, and we all know that. But I appreciated it. It's worked well for me, particularly as someone who's deaf, quite deaf indeed. It's not that I don't listen, it's just that I'm deaf. So I've appreciated the technology, but I take your point. I think what we need to do is look to our staff to be watching the evolution of these products. We can split the screen and look at the agenda on one side and Zoom on the other side. For the most part, I choose to look at the agenda so I don't have to look at me. So the public is seeing me through this, but I don't have to. And that's the good news about Zoom. But on the other hand, I've really appreciated the technology, which is provided to us as counselors. We have the technology. I know, and I'm chatting with the clerk, there is some concern about whether we make sure that our use of Zoom for attending or not attending meetings is considered appropriate, which is something I think we're going to be dealing with a little farther down the road, if I remember correctly. So this is just a passage in time, and I would encourage this point being part of the broader discussion with respect to how we determine who's coming or who stays at home, and depending on illness or whatever these factors are in the longer term. Because as somebody pointed out to me, I could have attended while I was home recovering from my hip surgery. Problem with that is they give you such wonderful drugs that you didn't want me here making decisions. So
Fair.
that's where I hear what is being said, and I'd like our clerk to make note of that as we move down the road. Thank you.
I'll recognize Counselor Maybe.
Thank you, Madam Mayor,
Sure,
and
okay.
and through you, because I do believe Clerk Westgate, back in the beginning of the year, or last year, I guess at this point, a year ago, had indicated that by removing the camera, we were actually saving the township quite a few thousands of dollars and going to this format. So that was one of the motivators in my mind to actually do that. The other thing is that there's many municipalities who don't record and don't save or don't video broadcast at all. And the way of the computer, we've been handed a computer here. This is the second term for me to have a computer, as Councillor Lackey or Deputy Mayor Lackey could probably attest to. Computers have been pretty much stable here at the council table for a long time. So I don't see that technology disappearing. And I also split screen. We do have a paper copy that's provided to us for the agenda. So I think and also municipal government is going the way of having us and allowing us to use electronic means to come to a meeting if we need to. So thank you.
Thank you, Counselor Maybe. I'll recognize Counselor Oki.
Thank you, Your Worship, and I support the lines taken by both Councillor Jameson and Councillor Maybe. This system grants us a lot of flexibility that we never had before. It is an upgrade in technologies, really, and the ability to work dispersed because of conditions or health or whatever prevailing concerns are out there in public. And the fact is that this doesn't really cost us anything except perhaps a license, which isn't that expensive. So for that reason, I'm very much in favor of keeping the Zoom platform. Thank you.
Thank you. Just speaking to Counselor Maybe's point, I believe that the savings was either $7,000 or $9,000 a year because it meant that we did not have to get another license with not eScribe. What's our platform that, because we broadcast through iCompass. Thank you. I think there was an additional addendum that we didn't have to buy anymore to have it through there. And for some reason it was under 10,000 and I'm thinking it was either $7,000 or $9,000 in savings. The other thing, I think that having the camera as it was, which was, we were light years ahead having the camera, as you indicated, there's many councils that don't broadcast at all. Having one-on-one face recognition, because where that camera was, it didn't always pick up who was talking, depending, like you could sort of see them moving depending on whether they were facing the camera or facing the gallery, if they're facing another council member. So I think it gives a better quality and a facial expression and maybe possibly more engagement. So there's those factors to put in as well. But go ahead, Councillor Graham.
Then just finally, looking at, I think I'm looking at the bylaw that'll be upcoming. So I'll just leap ahead there. So under 3.09, electronic meetings, C, notice of 12 hours shall be given for members to participate electronically. So we could kind of scratch C because we are attending electronically and we don't give notice to come to council meetings. just, the fine points there, if you want to get into it. I don't mind using Zoom, don't get me wrong. It's just I wanted to make sure we were thinking about that.
I'll let Counselor Fody speak and then, and then Counselor Oki. I apologize. Go ahead,
Thank you.
Counselor Fody.
Thank you, Your Worship, through you. I think the biggest advantage using Zoom versus the previous camera setup we had is our sound system. People that watched us on the previous camera had a lot of difficulty picking up soft voices or maybe murmured voices or whatever the case may be. But I think everybody would agree in most cases, the Zoom, and the part that I think the public would like, they can actually put names to faces with our staff on Zoom. Our staff were never on the camera before unless they spoke at the head mic.
Fair enough.
Thank you.
Counselor Oki.
Thank you, Your Worship. And a point of clarity from Councillor Gorell. It seems to me we do receive notice of these meetings in advance. There's emails usually 24, 48 hours in advance of these meetings. I don't know what you mean by, or perhaps I didn't hear it correctly.
So your point,
I'm
you're
just
asking him
concerned
to
about.
clarify?
Yes, please.
Notice shall be given to the clerk. In other words, if you want to participate in the meetings, section C says you give the clerk 12 hours notice. This is really picky, but just let's scratch C or have a little review on that before we approve the bylaw tonight. Because really what we're doing is overall saying, hey, let's go with Zoom meetings to record everything. Well, put that in the conduct of the meetings then. Thank you.
I think she's got it up here. What is it, Madam Clerk? 3.09C is the section that Councillor Gorell is speaking to. So essentially that section requires councillors to give 12 hours notice to the clerk. So if everything is via Zoom every time, whether we're here or not here, then why do we need to? So it's a redundancy. Okay. I think that's a reasonable ask. Okay. Go ahead.
And just finally, maybe under the conduct of the meetings, in that we are required to record, we have a bylaw, then let's just clarify that the electronic meetings will be our means to do so.
Through your worship, I can definitely make those changes to the procedure bylaw, and I will remove 3.09C.
Well, we'll have to probably defer this to the next meeting to have this come back for ratification, I would think. Deputy Mayor?
Thank you, Your Worship, and through you. We used to have sheets in front of us to declare conflict of interest that, we'd have to put our reasoning down and sign them and hand them in. Where did that go?
I think that we used to have a pile here. There isn't any here at the moment, but we can rectify that very quickly. COVID, yeah. So when we weren't here, there was no need to have a form sitting on the desk. But it's not to say that we can't have them back. Okay.
Thank you.
So based on this motion that's put forward by Councillor Gorell and seconded by Councillor Oki that the report SR-032-22 be approved, are we looking for a deferral to have those changes made to bring it back? I think so. Well, no, because there was a secondary piece, Councillor Gorell, that you brought forward in regards to the electronic participation in regards to Zoom and recording. So I think the clerk needs to bring that back in a more concise manner and make sure that we're not also conflicting within the procedure bylaw, one over the other. So can I ask for somebody to make this deferred to the May council meeting? So I have Councillor Jameson and Councillor Maybe. So I'll call the question on the deferral. All those in favor, please signify. All those opposed, and it's carried. So that will come back to the May council meeting. Okay, in regards to the next motion, we have information items. Motion is moved by Counselor Jameson, seconded by Counselor Maybe, that the information items be received and filed. Is there any additional questions or comments in regards to the information items? Or anybody that wants to have anything pulled for discussion, or if we can have minor discussion now. Okay, go Counselor Maybe.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and through you. One thing I was wondering, because it did talk about the longevity of a few things, but did it talk about potential of another well and where it might have to be located if in the event there needs to be another one drilled in the 20, whatever years it was? Thank you.
Which report are you speaking to? The operations report? I was just gonna say, I don't think we're in the right spot. Okay. We'll disregard that comment for now. Any further comments in regards to the information items being received and filed? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor, please signify. All those opposed, and it's carried. So moving on to unfinished business. Is there any unfinished business? Seeing none, we'll move forward to number 7, action required items. So the next motion is moved by Counselor Maybe and seconded by Counselor Jameson, that council approve the revised use of corporate resources for election purposes policy. Comments, questions, queries on this particular motion? The clerk is disappointed that there's no questions. I'm kidding. I think the election is sneaking up on us very quickly. You don't need to, just for the sake of asking a question. Oh, if you have a question, please go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and through you. Again, there's information to be given out to councilors and prospective members who want to run. That information will be coming out or sent or ready at the municipal office here at any particular date.
Madam Clerk, when will the information be available for the next election?
Through you, your worship, I will be sending out a notice of nomination of office tomorrow, and it will go to council. It also appear on our website, social media platforms, MyFM Minute. It also has been circulated through the Brockville Recorder and Times, jointly with the counties of Leeds and Grenville.
So I believe nominations will open up as of May the 2nd, but the paperwork is going out in advance of that date. Okay. Okay, go ahead, Councillor Fody.
Thank you, Your Worship, through you to our clerk. Am I reading that right, that the nominations are open from May 2nd to August 18th? August 17th, perhaps, and then there was another August 18th. I just thought when I read it, it seemed like an extended nomination period, that's all, as opposed to other years.
I think the last nomination period was May till the end of July.
Right.
So it is extended almost a month.
Was there a reason for it, I guess is where I'm going with this.
Not sure. Go ahead, Madam Clerk.
Through your worship, I will have to look back at the legislation again, just to confirm what the specific reason was. But just to confirm, nomination period does start on Monday, May 2nd, up until Thursday, August 18th, during regular business hours, as well as Friday, August 19th until 2 p.m.
Right. I guess my concern, if I may, by extending the nomination period, you're shortening your available work period to be prepared for the election. Is it still adequate? I guess if you're okay with that, you're the clerk. I mean, you're tightening up your own work period by extending the nomination period. That's all I'm saying. I could care less when the nomination period opens or closes, but by shortening your period of knowing when the nominations close, you're closing in on your window to prepare yourself through ballot papers more than anything.
Madam Clerk, is that sufficient time for you?
Yes, through your worship, that is sufficient time. Clerks have been proposed with these changes, and since I've started, I've been making sure that everything's well ready and well equipped for all of the candidates here in the township.
If you're good, I'm good. Thank you.
Go ahead, Mr. Jameson.
Just a question with respect, I don't want Councillor Foti to disclose any of his secrets, but if one fills in all the nomination forms and files well ahead of that August date, presumably one can begin the campaign as long as it's been received by the clerk, or is that August 18th the point at which one starts
Campaigning.
is allowed in effect to begin campaigning?
Go ahead.
And it's something I should have looked up. I apologize.
Through your worship, no worries. So once nominations are declared, I believe on Monday, August 22nd, candidates can begin campaigning. Once you file your nomination forms, you can begin spending on your campaign.
I think that's the operative thing for Councillor Foti's campaign, is to ensure that he's got all his paperwork in. The only thing I have to say about that August 18th date is and this is an urban decision because we have a lot of seasonal residents. So for those of you who are planning a campaign, we need to get up on the lakes and the rivers far before August the 18th to ensure that we're chatting with our neighbors about this. So thank you.
I did ask the clerk when this came up in previous discussion in regards to signage. My main concern is that if someone was to file their nomination paperwork, say May 15th, I'll just pick a number out of the air. If we had people putting up signs from May 15th to be up until whenever, I'm concerned for a number of reasons. We're going through a long period of time. So I believe the clerk, we're going to be discussing timeframes, what signage is approved. I realized that under the act, we can start spending as of that period, which means you can purchase your signs, be ready, purchase, brochures, all of that sort of thing. But I really, from not a beautification point, but if you have 17 candidates that come forward that want to run for council or mayor, then you've got how many signage, and it could be blown. I'm worried about environmental concerns. It really, that having this shortened period for signage only, I think makes sense. Just because of the environmental impact, both visually and from a garbage point of view. I noticed the other day that somebody had pulled out 2 campaign signs and thrown them on the end of the lawn because they had come out of the ditch in the winter. So just as an additional point. Go ahead, Councillor Jameson.
Gosh, this is so much fun. Can we ban signs, your worship, in our township and just say no signs?
That would be.
It would be bold. The reason I raise it is because, to your point, the last election was a littering campaign as much as it was a sign campaign, and we know why. So I'm just suggesting, is it necessary in the 21st century to be running around putting signs up all over the place? I mean,
I'll let the clerk address that, and then I'll recognize the deputy mayor.
Through your worship, great question. And in my research, that could be an option. But what will be happening is I'll be bringing forward a report in May to the committee of the whole for discussion, and we can determine what options you guys would like to take in terms of an election sign bylaw.
Okay. Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Your Worship, and not really about election signs, but signage in general. We in the past signed a signage bylaw, mostly to get rid of real estate signs after, the places have sold and they neglect to take the signs down and they're littered all over the place. But election signs are much the same. I don't know how many I've picked up of, I won't say who, but anyway, I had a yard full of them.
Madam Planner, we do have a sign bylaw, we do not have a sign bylaw. My apologies. I know that it's been discussed briefly before, so it is perhaps under advisement that we look into that to have further clarity on that and also enforcement ability at that time. Follow up, Deputy Mayor?
Yes, Your Worship. It was supposed to be 30 days within the sale of the property that the signs come down. That the companies have to be accountable. The people who put the signs up, much like our towers, have to be accountable if something happens and they have to take them down. It's
Fair enough.
the same thing.
Councillor Foti, is this pertaining to the election or, okay, go ahead.
Thank you, Your Worship. Through you, I like Councillor Jameson's proposal of no signs at all. It would literally eliminate the controversial issues that arose in this township in the last election, when people were told that they had to maintain a sign on their, what they perceived as their property, or face the wrath. But more openly, I think we need to get a message out either by our newsletter, which we may have missed a date. I think the rest of the public needs to be aware of what we're thinking, and they may wish to weigh in on that, particularly candidates who might wish to run. They may see it as different because they're not maybe haven't rooted here as long as myself. So I don't want to see us put any candidate in a position where they feel like they're starting from 15th place in a horse race and trying to catch up to run for a one of 7 positions.
Well, I think Councillor Foti, just to your point, as the clerk mentioned, the proposed election sign bylaw will be coming to council or to committee of the whole first for debate and discussion, in which case then the public can weigh in. We'll provide notice, and if anybody is using their social media channels to get the word out to see whether or not people want to see them or not see them, because it is a valid question. And I agree with your point, Councillor Foti, for someone who maybe had not been previously elected, they might see that as a disadvantage to not having their name out there. And that is a very valid argument, but that's what the purpose of the resolution to come to committee of the whole. So any further comments in regards to the revised use of corporate resources for election purposes policy? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? All those opposed? And it's carried. Next on the docket, moved by Councillor Maybe, seconded by Councillor Jameson, that council authorize the mayor and clerk to enter an agreement with the town of Gananoque for the purpose of managing and administering the Thousand Islands Wanderer, a unique approach to attraction tourism marketing initiative. Comments, questions on this particular resolution? Go ahead, Councillor Gorell.
Thank you. And through you, Your Worship, I had the opportunity to read that this afternoon in its entirety, and I must say it's very well written report. But there were a couple of points that did come to mind. This isn't really the first time that some kind of blogging and so on. It's sort of, they're trying to attract the digital era. And but that's been done by RT09. And I actually had a couple of examples I looked at today, and it's all the attractions we're familiar with. But two things. Number one, the report states the town of Gananoque is the lead, contributing $45,000, and we're contributing $20,000. That makes us sound like an unequal partner, when in actual fact, the numbers on the application are 25 and 20. 25 and 20. The Chamber of Commerce is putting in kind of $10,000. The Chamber of Commerce is actually the lead on this. So I would just say that we're not, that's 50-50, the town and us. It's the Chamber that's putting in the remainder of that money, and a couple of other in-kind folks. The other issue we have no control over, we're not the lead on this. So I'm assuming that the very, very capable Chamber of Commerce is doing the hiring of this wanderer, and that should be fun. I don't know the criteria. Does it matter to us? It's an experiment. is what it is in digital marketing. I just want to be clear on that. They've done it before. It's not new. So I just want to point that out, really. But the report reads very well and the application reads very well. And I think the chamber did that.
Actually, I'm gonna clarify
Sure.
a few things for you.
Sure.
I have a great interest in this application, and I have from the time that it was brought to my attention. So yes, we've done other blogging individuals that have come to the area. This particular app, though, is being targeted to be to bring people to this specific area and keep them here. So what I do understand is that Amanda Trafford from the town of Gananoque is the lead, who will be coordinating this with our assistance and our input. So I believe, is it McKenna that will be our contact locally, or will it be Katie? I'm not sure if it's one or the other or both. Katie. So the main impetus, though, is to find that wanderer, as you said. And I was speaking to the individual from Gananoque, I think either today or yesterday. There will be a tender going out for that wanderer. So it has to be somebody who has the knowledge and wherewithal, but also has the camera equipment, and because it really is about showcasing the benefits of all the different attractions, right down to, mini golf, to going through the greenhouses at Wendy's Country Market. It really is about bringing people to this area, keeping them here, and engaging them with our local business owners and the people here. So it is an experiment, but one of the things that the Minister of Agriculture said when they were handing out the funds to support it, and you are right, and I'm not sure, I'd have to go back to the report, but the town of Gananoque put in $25,000 of their own, and we put in 20. So there's not a huge disparity between the two. So I wouldn't say that one will benefit greatly over the other, because I know that these individuals have also been involved with the RED grant, which they were very cognizant of making sure that they benefited both town and township businesses equally. So I think that we'll see a lot of that continue over and spill into this particular initiative. But the irony of this is that this was presented to the county as an opportunity to bring the county together. And at that point in time, it was declined, saying that they required a strategy to market the county. So I believed that in this particular app long ago, because to me, it's a very organic way of showcasing what's going on here. One of the bloggers that you might have referred to did a beautiful drone shot, aerial trip on the St. Lawrence River and other local attractions that was showcased. And this man goes all over the world. And the video, Chris Lau, I think is his name. But wow, what a stunning way to look at your own home. Because I think that's the excitement that's coming through in this particular report, is that they're really looking forward on showcasing us, even the smallest of things, whether it's berry picking or what have you, and what you can do at different times of the year. So yes, go ahead, Councillor James.
Since you raised the prospect of the county engaging or not engaging, I read, and I'm not following the county as much as I should, I read that the County Economic Development Office appears to be getting into the tourism business, at least in the public press that's been reported. And I will say, if that is the case, Your Worship, I'm more than a little concerned. We have RTO9, we have organizations like our Thousand Islands Visitors Service and so on. And I'm not quite sure why the county is now entering this with our money, without really a fulsome discussion about why they're getting into a business they don't know. Maybe I'm wrong, but please correct me if I'm wrong.
I can't correct you. They are getting into tourism and marketing from a county perspective. They are having a meeting on August the 22nd in Kemptville in regards to, I believe it's the mayors that are coming. I don't know if there's other staff members. You said April, August. Sorry, it's not August. No, it's April. Oh, did I say August? Oh, Lord. Sorry. It's April. It's in a couple of weeks in Kemptville. They're going to have a group discussion about strategy and marketing and tourism. I'll be very blunt. When this came up, myself, I believe that we discussed this briefly at council too. They basically went to RTO9 to get, I think it was $125,000 at the time, to create this strategy to market the counties as a whole. And they wanted to call it the Thousand Islands Rideau DMO. And I don't know if anybody remembers that, but I do believe I brought it to council at that point in time. It was very early in the pandemic, and in the chaos of the pandemic might have got lost. We were not happy with them using, it wasn't we, it was our chamber, the Thousand Islands Gananoque Chamber of Commerce, who is the local DMO. They were using the same name, essentially, as the Thousand Islands DMO, Thousand Islands Rideau DMO. So our concern was that there'd be confusion and duplication in the marketplace in promoting the area. Obviously, we want to have the area promoted as much as possible, but there's a lot more to the United Counties of Leeds and Grenville than the Thousand Islands and the Rideau Canal. So it wasn't, the name of the new DMO was not reflective, in my opinion, of the entirety. It should have been more St. Lawrence Seaway, Rideau Canal, there was a number of different things that were brought forward at that time. Having said that, they weren't willing to bend because of the brand recognition of the Thousand Islands. And that was the basic thing about that. I'll finish my thought on this. So now we have $125,000 we're going to spend on strategy on how we're going to market this. And then my anticipation is that county will come back for additional staffing to execute this. There was no consultation with the existing DMOs, and there's another DMO in the Brockville area that was not consulted when this was created. I think that it's kind of a backwards way. I said that correctly, of doing things. And unfortunately, it's not cohesive right now, and we really need to be cohesive because we have the international plowing match that's happening in September in the Kemptville area, and we need to be marketing this area. But unfortunately, our strategy is coming forward, or the consultation is in April. I don't know how effective we can be between now and the international plowing match. Not that there won't be a need after the international plowing match, but I've said my piece on that. I'm going to attend on the 22nd. At the county's level. I will be happy to take your concerns to them at that time. Go ahead.
My concern, your worship, is you've got a staff that has no background in this. They're going to get a study done with public money, and then they're going to come back to the county, which is our money, to finance yet another tourism outfit, where we've already got RTO9 and we have the DMOs. The ability to coordinate existing organizations that are already doing a pretty effective job in many different areas should be the priority, instead of building another bureaucracy up in Brockville to try to service Kemptville. I mean, there's a certain point where it's just beyond the pale for me, and seen it over decades. Everybody gets in the economic development business, everybody gets in the tourism business, and a ton of public money gets sucked up. In the case of our Wanderer program, and the Chamber of Commerce has involved itself, they put some skin in the game. And back in the old days, that's how it worked. The chamber stepped up, put money on the table, and we got economic development commissions running. Now we've got a bunch of people sitting in Brockville deciding they want to be in the tourism business. And maybe it's because their economic development strategy isn't going so well. So they got to find something else to do. So from my point of view, they should not get into the tourism business at all. And that I would appreciate one lone counselor from the middle of nowhere has that point of view. Thank you.
I'll recognize Councillor Foti, then Councillor Gorell if he has it. Nope. Okay, Councillor Foti, you go
Thank you,
ahead.
your worship. And I take exception to Councillor Jameson's the middle of nowhere. We are the center of everywhere. Just clarification. I would like our mayor, when you go to that meeting, to convey the irony that the county wants to get into tourism to draw more people to the area. Have they seen their roads?
Are you trying to put my neck out on a chopping block somewhere along the way? I'm not going to disagree. And I had a very, candid conversation with some individuals at county about the state of our county roads. And we're veering off this Wanderer resolution. So I'm going to bring us back here, but it is germane to the tourism discussion. And good roads mean good business, mean good experiences. And just coming back from good roads, meeting a couple from Boston in the elevator, and here they're like, "What are you doing here in good roads?" "Oh, well, come to Boston. They're terrible there, and it's terrible. Don't visit us. You'll lose your car in a pothole." But it's funny how something so simple that we drive on every single day is a shared frustration. It doesn't matter which side of the border you're on or probably what country you're in, but that we could be doing better there. And there needs to be some specific planning on that. But back to the Wanderer app and what this can do for us, it is a very organic way and really cheap in the grand scheme of things for us to put economic development rubber on the road, because it's actually going to be showcasing businesses and engaging people with those businesses, both local and people coming in. And some of the ideas that these coordinators have are fantastic. They'll also be showcasing the events that are happening here, whether it be the Turkey Fair, whether it be Canoe Fest, whether it be Lansdowne Fair, Rockport Dock, picnic area, anything, even the arts that show that they do down there as well. So there'll be lots of different reasons to come here, and through that app, we'll be promoting through that. Go ahead.
I was just going to ask, where does this information get posted? It's online.
Which information?
What we're talking, pardon me, this blog, so on.
Oh,
So what would be the title? Is it Gananoque, Thousand Islands region? Do we know?
I
Just
can
curious.
get that specifically. We can find that out for you and have that so that you guys can follow it. But my guess is it will showcase on all their social media channels for the Thousand Islands Chamber,
Mhm.
as well as I think there's Travel Thousand Islands, which is another one. The app, if you download it on your phone, it will actually pop up little cameos type thing. I'm very excited to see who ends up with the contract, because it'll probably be some young whippersnipper, as I can say that, as at my old ripe age of 46. Maybe it'll be the clerk who will, take their selfie stick and, hike up Blue Mountain or in Charleston Lake or in the parks or what have you, and sharing that experience with people so that they can sort of have a firsthand experience without being there, and hopefully draw them in. So go ahead.
Thank you, and through you, Your Worship. And again, once again, the report reads very well, I must say. Currently, what are we? I've sort of lost a little bit of track of what our endeavors have been in our own township. We were dealing with something called the Post Media. Remember that one last year? And there would be articles come up in the Globe and Mail and Post Media stuff.
That was
Maybe I
through
should.
the Red Grant.
That was also a red grant.
Correct.
Were we part of the funding of that as well? I don't know. Is that ongoing or is that concluded?
I'll let Mrs. Vendity to.
Because that was
address that.
quite good.
Mhm.
Thank you through you. So the Red Grant work is completed,
Mm.
but that was in partnership with Gananoque as well.
Mhm.
We do have a couple other Red Grant initiatives with the pop-up farmers market, as well as, there was the Digital Main Street project. So all of the Red Grant funding, with the exception of the pop-up farmers market, is concluded at this point.
Okay.
We also do have the Driftscape app that we've been using in terms of putting information out there. That's been used to showcase our local settlement area tours, our heritage walking tours. And it's also being used together with the pop-up farmers market. So that's a technology platform that we've got where we're building other layers on that to showcase local businesses as well.
So most of these items have a shelf life. They're a few months or a year and then they end more or less. Is that?
Those
Person.
ones are, however, the Driftscape app is something that we're looking at investing in and building that app
Right.
to continue to build
Okay.
this as a destination area.
Good. Thank you.
Okay, any further comments or questions in regards to the Wanderer app? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor, please signal. All those opposed, carried. Okay, next on the docket is moved by Councillor Maybe, seconded by Councillor Jameson. The council approves zoning bylaw amendment attached to this report as Exhibit E to rezone the property from rural RU to rural special exception 50 RU-50 and to rural special exception 51 RU-51 to restrict future development on the property to the building envelopes defined through the environmental impact assessment for the lots. This is what we had discussed earlier in the public meeting. Is there any questions or concerns in regards to this motion? Go ahead, Councillor Rowe.
What would be a typical cost for environmental assessment? It seems that it is a new policy, not ours. I take it that's from the province or from the county to do that in order to have consent. Seems a lot of money to be forcing on people.
Through your worship, it's the product of a number of things, actually. It's provincial policy statement, it's official plan, as well as conservation authority regulations. With respect to the cost for an environmental impact study, it really depends on the scope of the review. In these cases, we've seen a number recently that are looking at the woodland. That's to determine if it in fact is a significant woodland. It certainly is nowhere near the cost of doing a tree inventory and looking at everything specifically in terms of tree by tree. In this case, it's looking at the woodland to determine what the level of significance are. So a lot of that is to do with the size and scale of the woodland and the tree cover. We also do have a lot of species at risk and specific species that need to be reviewed under that provincial legislation as well. So depending on the nature and the scope of the study, I would say they probably run between $1,500 to $5,000, depending on the scope of the study, but I certainly am not a consultant in that field.
Go ahead.
Are those, all of these rules besides policy statements on, it's the county in that the consent goes to county, and are they the ones that would have the conditionality of having an EIS, or is that determined by us, or who puts the tick marks in that box?
It's sort of all of the above. So
Okay.
before an applicant comes in for a consent or submits an application, they're required to pre-consult with the township. When they pre-consult with the township, we involve the health unit and the conservation authority in the discussion. So before an applicant even submits an application, they're made aware of what the requirements would be. But the county would leave that to the township and the conservation authority to determine what studies are required in support of an application.
Any further comments or questions in regards to this motion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? All those opposed? And it's carried. Okay, next on the agenda is moved by Councillor Fody, seconded by Councillor Grell, that council directs staff to implement the proposed responses to the ombudsman's recommendations as listed in administration report SR-058-22. Questions or comments in regards to this? Go ahead, Councillor Fody. I'll have the CAO come forward.
Oh, sorry, your worship. CEO is going first or?
No, you can go ahead and ask your questions. He's just there to answer them.
Okay. When I read this report, if the ombudsman sees it, that we should have discussed the 3 million here on camera, I'm okay with that. Question I have, when I read this report, has the $30 million in that we're referring to with a company to implement this, had that ever been released before anywhere, that number?
Thank you. Your
I
worship.
don't know. I'm asking. It's not just to our CAO. This is a question I have.
To answer your question, no. The $30 million figure was part of the telecom design construction cost estimate. And that was confidential. And furthermore, the ombudsman ruled that that was part of the report, that the telecom report was properly held in camera, that discussion. So technically that $30 million should remain confidential.
How ironic.
If I may, that opens up the Pandora's box that I had in my mind. To what authority does the ombudsman have to reveal that? That is the main reason we stayed in camera, because we didn't want to reveal the price tag that was attached to the applicant who may have won that application. And we took a figure to put some skin in the game, to quote Councillor Jameson from earlier tonight. We thought, to show that we were committed, we threw a figure, not committing it because there was a lot more to go yet. So we threw in a $3 million figure, and we kept that all in camera to protect the $30 million statement. And the ombudsman now comes out and makes it public on his statements. Is that legal? I'm not trying to put you on the spot because of your law degree, but
I'm going to give you a good lawyer answer. I am really not prepared to say that whether it's legal or not. The ombudsman under the Ombudsman Act has pretty wide-ranging powers. My understanding, however, is that they also have things that are provided in confidence or of a confidential nature. The ombudsman has certain obligations to keep things confidential. And so, for instance, something provided to the ombudsman would not be subject to an INFIPA request from a third party trying to seek to gain the confidential information through the ombudsman's office. I think this must have been something that was, the reference says to $3 million or 10% of the project costs. I think that was just an error on their part, which I'd be happy to raise with them.
that is my final question. Can we send a letter to the ombudsman to have them explain why they revealed this to the public?
It's
The 30 million I'm talking about.
I have the letter half written in my head.
Perfect. Thank you.
I'll recognize Councillor Jameson.
We're a little worked up about this. We are. But to the extent that we all went into that room and discussed proprietary information because it had to be discussed in that room and nowhere else, and that whatever figures were being thrown around were not figures there for us to make a decision, and we didn't. So all of us around this table know that our integrity with respect to how we handled ourselves in that meeting is completely without reproach, unless any one of us who was in that room thinks otherwise. My view is we just let it go and move on. It was a bad exercise, poorly managed. I'm talking about the whole business of somebody looking to take us down. But if we are interested in our own integrity, there's nothing that went on in that room that any one of us should feel any less than confident that we did the right thing by the Municipal Act and by our own sense of care for our citizens, care for our community. And I think we should just let the thing go, however bad it was, however angry I am too. But I think we should let it go. Thank you.
Any other comments or questions? Seeing none, I will call the question on the motion at hand. All those in favor, please signify. All those opposed? The motion is carried. I will, however, say this. Should a media outlet use inflammatory wording to sell papers, it says more about them than it does about us. There is recommendations in the report that we've just passed to put into place, which we will gladly take the direction from the ombudsman and take it under advisement. Having said that, to further accuse us of having illegal meetings, which is essentially what that headline said, was out of line and definitely out of place. And I'll leave it at that. So next item on the agenda is the in-camera session. I'll put that on the floor and then we'll take a 5-minute break. Oh, do I have, sorry, I got ahead of myself. I just was looking at my motions. I too am not happy. So I'm distracted. Mayor's update. I apologize. Okay, mayor's update. It's a skinny update other than to say that myself, Councillor Olkey and Councillor Fody, along with our roads manager, Aaron Hatton, attended Good Roads. Aaron Hatton remains in Toronto at this time. We came back early to ensure this meeting could go forward. Having said that, it was a great conference. I know that I took a lot away personally. I won't speak on behalf of Councillor Fody and Councillor Olkey, but I do know that they enjoyed the speakers as much as I did. Having said that, there was 2 opportunities for us to speak to 2 different members of provincial parliament, one being a minister in regards to specific issues going on here in the township. And so my point to raising that is to let people know that a lot of people think, oh, it's just it's a lark to go to these conferences and that it's not money well spent. If either one of those issues that were brought up with the members of parliament and the minister move forward even an inch, it's well worth the time spent there. Also, the connections that we make with some suppliers and some other new technologies. I know that I had a great conversation with the Municipal Finance Managers Association, the head of that association, and we had great chats about our wonderful treasurer, Ms. Tyndall, and the work that they've done here in asset management. And she was very impressed to know how far along we are in the process, because it's one of the struggles of smaller municipalities, right down to fiber, different types of fiber they put in asphalt to make it last longer. I also had an opportunity to speak to our contractor for Trackmatics, just to underscore part of the reasons that we go, so that we have better understanding of where we're at with the current suppliers, potential other suppliers, and other speakers in regards to larger political issues at hand, both locally and in the world. Regarding county council, there's been a number of announcements you will have seen recently in regards to Pixie's Place. I feel it's important to bring that up because it is an innovative way to dealing with not only homelessness and addictions, but also mental health issues in the United Counties of Leeds and Grenville. It was a church that was converted into 8 units, 2 barrier-free units for individuals who are precariously housed or not housed at all, are homeless. But not only that, the services are on site for those particular issues that you might need help for, mental health or addictions. And so having those services on site, my hope is that Pixie's Place becomes a beacon of hope for those who have the benefit of utilizing the services, both from a shelter point of view, but also counseling and other means of getting jobs and what have you, because that is often the toughest path to get out of addiction, is having those supports in place. Just as an ancillary note, Pixie, the name Pixie's Place is very specific. And I knew nothing about this woman until I got involved with this project as chair of joint services. But Pixie was a housing manager for many years for the county. And it was interesting to hear the minister talk about her as well as other staff members. She was a beacon of light for many homeless people and precariously housed individuals throughout the counties for many years. She had an authoritative way of handling things, but yet a soft and tender heart to really ensure that those who needed it most are taken care of. So it's a very touching story. And my hope is that Pixie's Place lives up to the person it's named after, and that we have some great success stories for people to move away from the darkness of addiction and the difficulties, some mental health issues, to get back on track. So, and other than that, as I said, the tourism meeting that's on April 22nd in Kemptville. And of course, our council meeting, which will be the third Thursday of the month. And I can bring back reports on end, I'm sure, that keep everybody awake at night. So if you want them, I'm happy to bring them. Is there any other questions for me as a mayor's update? Oh, we have a peer meeting next week. So any of your village people, any of the organizations that may be interested who might not be on the list, be sure to have them reach out to myself or the clerk. Seeing nothing else on the mayor's update, we'll go to notice of motion. Any notices of motion? No notices of motion. Announcements. Any announcements? Go ahead, Mr. Jameson.
Thank you, your worship. Small halls have been announced. And I'm delighted to report that up in Sealy's Bay, we're doing two, one on the 28th and one on the 29th, and then we'll all have to go to bed for 3 or 4 days. But in any case, we're having the Sky Diggers and Hawksley Workmen. So we're all pretty excited about that. We're also jamming the Canoe Fest in between Saturday night and the Sunday afternoon. So we're going to actually have to go to bed for 4 or 5 days. But we're pretty excited about that. I also just want to say how much I appreciate the weekly and also the calendar that was included in last week's weekly, all these things that are happening and can be updated. Also appreciate the clerk's efforts to make it look really spiffy. I think it looks spiffy. I don't know. I'll have to look that word up someday. And notwithstanding all of that, I hope we're all remaining masked where we should. I'm thinking of all the events we're going to run and so on and so forth. So I hope we'll all try to stay safe in the meantime. Thank you.
Any further announcements? Other than Easter? Yes, Easter is coming up. So if you haven't already, take a run out to Ridgeway Chocolate. If you haven't got your special sweetie something sweet, I'm sure they would love to see you. And you never know, you might see the Easter Bunny hopping around here somewhere. So I'll go forward with the in-camera motion and then we'll take a 5-minute recess and come back. So motion is by Councillor Burrell, seconded by Councillor Maybe, that the council adjourn to go in camera in order to discuss an item that relates to personnel matters about an identifiable individual, including municipal or local board employees, human resource matter, verbal. All those in favor? All those opposed? And we're carried.